This video is for people who feel like a stranger in their own life. Like nothing quite fits anymore. Nothing quite feels right. You might feel like things that used to give you a tremendous amount of joy feel dull. Like there's this inability to derive the sensations and feelings and experiences you used to get easily, naturally, automatically from some of these prized aspects of your life. And this, of course, can lead to this concern, like, what the heck is going on? Am I depressed? Is this anxiety? Do I need to like buy a motorcycle and go on a walkabout? Like, what's going on here? What's actually happening is something structural within your consciousness is shifting. You might be gaining access to what Carl Jung calls the spirit of the depths. He said there's a spirit of the depths and the spirit of the times. The spirit of the times is like your persona, your personality, influenced heavily, of course, by your upbringing and conditioning and what you've been taught. The spirit of the depths is like your soul, the presence and almost like personality of your soul. And what oftentimes happens is as this other part of yourself starts to kind of demand more of your attention and demand more of an influence in your life, it will reveal to you just how misguided you once were, but the experience of that is what I'm discussing in this video. So if you feel like that, if you feel like a stranger in your own life and you feel more lost than ever before and more trapped in your circumstance than ever before, you're not alone. A lot of people are going through this right now, and it's actually the beginning of a whole new chapter of your life that's going to knock the socks off of this previous one. Now, what a lot of you might be feeling right now is like what I call the great in-between. In between the old life, which of course is falling away, not feeling right, not bringing you joy, etc. But the new one hasn't arrived yet. The spirit of the depth has not really formally introduced themselves with any clear instructions of what to do exactly in your life circumstance. And you're like in this in-between where you no longer feel like the identity stability from your previous life. You're seeing all through that, like, okay, this is not me, but then who am I? You might be like in that mode. Who am I? What does excite me? What does light me up? You might have just lots and lots of questions and also unpleasant feelings of anxiety and depression and just feeling emotions maybe be coming up that you don't even understand why they're coming up. And there might just be this dull ache of melancholy as like a foundational undertone to all this other stuff. And again, there's nothing to grasp onto quite yet. And you just find yourself questioning everything, questioning who you are. And it's a very scary and very lonely place to be because it's hard to even put into words. When I went through this, I didn't know how to articulate what it was I was feeling. And I even like doubted it. Like, am I just overthinking my life? Am I just being a baby? Is this something that everyone is just putting up with and just not discussing? Am I like being dramatic? But as it continues and intensifies, it becomes undeniable, right? For this video, I'm going to reference someone who I'm a huge fan of, Stanislav Grof. He was what you would call a transpersonal psychologist. And what that really means is he discovered through his research of psychedelic research and also holotropic breathwork he would run, that the origin of people's personality, including their challenges and their traumas, it goes way deeper than what Western psychology says. Western psychology believes, to this day for the most part, that we all come in a blank slate. And anything that like we're struggling with now in our life has been imprinted upon us from, mom or dad and whatever our life experiences was. And of course, there's truth to that. But what he found is that it goes a lot deeper. Carl Jung actually was one of the pioneers who's really studied the depths of the psyche. And when you start getting into the transpersonal realms, it's when you start having experiences like you're having right now, where you really feel almost like your reality is dissolving, like you are having like a legitimate identity crisis, You feel trapped in a life that you can't stand, and you don't know why it's happening. You don't know where to go. You don't know who you are. Western psychology will say, well, it's clearly psychosis. Here's some medication. Maybe we can get a room for you. And it's so unfortunate because, especially now, because of how many people are going through this. And what he has found is that, yeah, it's tough. And if you relate with what I'm saying, it's not easy. This is what he calls a spiritual emergency, in fact. And just to kind of clarify what he means by emergency, it doesn't mean like, you're in trouble. It means like emergence. It's a spiritual emergence, an emergence of the spirit of the depth that we were discussing earlier. It's an emergence of other aspects of your consciousness that you were previously unaware of, including both your shadow and your light. You might even be realizing that. You might have been having some insights about yourself. If you relate with what I'm saying, you may have started to notice some of why you do what you do. You might start connecting the dots between your present challenges, your mindset, your beliefs, your fears, your phobias, and other parts of your past. But the point of me saying this is this identity crisis, which, again, Western psychology would prefer to kind of deal with the symptoms of it and like numb you out. If you can see it through and you can like yield to it and you can trust it, you can let go, and the emergence of all this stuff, even the confusion, the questioning, it results in a more holistic embodiment of the totality of who you are, as weird as that kind of sounded. You discover more of yourself, and you can kind of come out the other side with a new perspective, a broader, more expanded, more accurate perspective on yourself and life. It's not uncommon at all to discover talents you didn't know you had, passions. And oftentimes this emergence will also start to correspond with synchronistic events happening in your life that kind of like help guide the way forward in a good way into a more authentic life. And as trapped as you feel in the one you may be in right now, you're not actually trapped. And if you can start to kind of inquire within and like work with the spirit of the depth, you'll discover it's an amazing source of guidance, an amazing source of healing, an amazing source of creative energy, an amazing source of physical vitality, and it's a powerhouse of energy that's emerging right now and trying to help you live a better life. Why? Because it's time. Because you're ready. It's like an evolution of consciousness. And you're not the only one going through this. I went through the same exact process. And I didn't have... Actually, I eventually did find this guy, but it was after I went to the doctor. And you know what happened when I went to the doctor and told him what was happening with me? They gave me a checklist of 10 questions. And you know what? I marked 6 out of 10. And therefore, I was diagnosed as being bipolar. I was put on anti-seizure medication, something called Lamictal, and sent out the door and said, come back in a month. And I remember how I felt. I felt so sleepy all the time. I felt really just out of it. Yeah, I was not experiencing the deep lows and the melancholy, but I felt like just like a freaking zombie. And anyways, I'm not to say that some people of course need this medication. I'm not a doctor here, but that was not right for me, and I knew it in my heart. And luckily, I got off the medication and continued to kind of forge on, guided by my intuition, and it ended up being an amazing thing. The depression, the confusion, the being trapped, the feeling like a stranger in my own life, that eventually passed and gave way to healing, catharsis, self-discovery, new opportunities, and me kind of blossoming into this version of myself that I could have never mapped out or pursued. It just sort of unfolded all by itself. And if you're watching this video, I just want to share with you a few things that I think can help you if you relate to what I'm saying, especially if you're new to this. And if you're not new to this, it still might help you, because if you're not new to this, you might realize this happens more than one time. I'm going through this right now in my life, 20 years later than what I was just talking about. And I'm going through it all again. That's why I'm inspired and it's relevant for me to make this video. So this is for both people who have been on the path for a long time and also people who are new as well. One of the things I recommend is to at least give it a try to trust the process. I know some of you are like, I can't trust the process because that just seems impossible. I don't mean intellectually. I mean, give it a chance. And I'll give an example. One of the things that I went through during my own spiritual emergency was something called a Kundalini awakening. And real briefly what that is, it's this unleashing of what is said to be cosmic energy that everybody has stored at the base of their spine. And through trauma, through psychedelics, through meditation, through yoga practices, through guru initiation, different things can happen. Also randomly, this energy can kind of be unleashed in your nervous system and in your body. And I know it sounds like I'm just talking nonsense, but when you go through it, it's a very real thing. It gets your attention. And what was happening to me during this time is I was having a lot of energy that would just sort of like come out of nowhere from the base of my spine, just as they said, and it would rush up my spine and like kind of pour out my head. And it was so forceful, so intense, I had no choice but to lay down and just hope to God I was going to survive. It felt that powerful. It felt like something was going wrong in my nervous system, like a stroke or something crazy was happening with me. And consequently, I resisted it for the first several times until eventually, believe it or not, I remember way back in the day, 20 years ago, I looked online like trying to find help, and I found he actually put out a website. I think it's like Spiritual Emergence or spiritualemergency.net or .com, and I found that exact site. And it was like, it kind of explained a little bit about Kundalini, what I was going through. And once I had a different like understanding of it, the next time that energy came, instead of resisting and freaking out, I remembered just to like let go. And you know what happened when I did that? Prior to that, it was terrifying what was happening. I feared for my actual life. It felt like my body was going to give out. But once I had this understanding, which I'm trying to help you all with right now, I had a completely like opposite experience of that. And the next time it happened, I felt the energy kind of like bubbling up, you could say. And I laid down like usual, but this time I just let go and I surrendered to it. I said, do your thing. I trust you. And it was, and what was once a scary experience turned into like euphoric, ecstatic bliss. The energy felt like a warm current of divine, ecstatic energy, just like water washing up my spine, purifying me, connecting me back with my divine essence. Not a bad deal. But anyway, that's the difference that a little bit of understanding can make. And that's the difference that letting go and trusting can make. I chose to trust. I chose to give it a shot. What happened? What happens if I trust? What happens if you trust that this dullness, this confusion, maybe even life problems, maybe even physical symptoms, maybe even other wild stuff that I'll get into in other videos. I do plenty of that. Maybe that has a purpose. What if you chose to at least believe that? I invite you to give it a whirl and see for yourself that underneath the confusion is something within you that is guiding the whole thing. But only trust, in my experience, can access that. And resistance and control will sever you from it, creating the illusion of something really horrible sort of randomly happening to you. Another tip, something I also didn't have, is a grounding. You might hear this word, like grounding. I don't mean any kind of formal like Tai Chi or anything, even though I'm a big fan. I mean being wise about how you handle it, being wise about who you share this with, because people, trust me, I tried. People, it can happen where people think you're nuts. And if you're already doubting yourself and then other people look at you like you have freaking lobsters crawling out of your ears. You talk about some of the things you're going through. It can get you can get really, really worked up basically when you don't have like the right support system. And some of you might not have any support system, and you know what? That's better than having the wrong support system. You got YouTube at least. Maybe these videos help you. Hopefully they do. That's why I make them. There's one right there. But my advice, learn from my mistakes. I remember one time when I was going through this, my mom, at the time I was training my mom and her friend in the basement of my house. I was a personal trainer. And my mom had come over, and her friend who normally comes, she didn't come this time. And it was just me and her. And I thought that would be a good opportunity to tell her all about the aliens and extraterrestrials that are really running the government. And I talked about I had just watched that documentary, Zeitgeist or something on YouTube, and I was just going off the freaking chain about all this stuff. And how do you think my mom responded? Do you think she was appreciative of all the information? Do you think she went home and said, you know what, maybe I'll start meditating and doing yoga and cleaning up my diet and praying or whatever? No. She became very worried about me. She thought my son has lost his freaking mind. What the hell is he talking about? God help him. Ha! My mom right there. Speak of not the devil, but kind of funny synchronicity right there. But anyways, yeah, play it cool. You got to play it cool. You can't go babbling to other people and expect that they're just going to understand. If you have one or two people in your life who you can go to at this, then you're blessed. Another thing is also to grounding. It's also to before you make a big move, it's good to see the situation from many perspectives. Because what you will find during this awakening process, you'll have times where you feel great and connected and almost blissed out. But that's not the truth necessarily. That can also get you into problems, just as being in a fearful, panicky way. That, of course, usually leads to poor choices. Both of which are just perspectives. And neither are the end-all be-all, but both have something to consider there. Fear is not a pointless thing. We have fear for a reason, for example. Excitement is great, but it's unwise if it's not balanced with maturity and temperance and patience and looking at the numbers maybe, It's good to really make well-rounded choices, because you will find yourself oscillating between a lot of very wildly different perspectives during this time. And the truth a lot of times isn't so simple. It's usually a combination of many perspectives can lead you to sound reasoning and wise choices, And I say that because I did a lot of crazy shit when I went through this. For example, we sold our house that my father-in-law bought for us, paid it off. We sold it, we took the money, and we blew through it, my wife and I, bought an RV, traveled around the world or the country, and ended up going completely broke because I thought spirit was going to take care of everything. I had a lot of spiritual experiences at that time, and I really believed that money was going to just somehow come back, that as fast as I spent it. I believed, well, I just manifested. I had a lot of these sort of naive, ungrounded beliefs, and it led me into a very crappy situation. We ran out of money. I had to take my daughter and my wife, and we lived in this really, not dangerous, but a really crummy, month-to-month furnished, smoky apartment for a while because I went broke. And that could have easily been avoided if I had seen something like this to say, hey, Vic, before you sell the house, buddy, give it a couple of weeks. See if that still feels like a good idea. And then one last word of the wise, and this is hard to do, but it's to say yes to everything, to accept everything. During the awakening, you become aware of a lot of stuff that hard pills to swallow, you might say, about yourself, about life, about where you are in relation to your life. It might feel very off, as we discussed. But what I've learned is that everything kind of unfolds in the best way. You need to see this clearly before you can have this other new idea that leads you here eventually. It's got to be in that order, essentially. What comes to mind is the very first time I drank ayahuasca was at a place in Costa Rica that I was actually invited to go to in exchange for making YouTube videos. And it was run by this really cool dude, this charismatic guy. And he told the story of kind of how ayahuasca works. At least, like, not that you can really tell people, it's not that simple, but he had kind of an interesting way of presenting it, which worked for me. He said, like, here's us, right? And here's our intention. Our intention might be like, well, to live a better life, to have a career that's more fulfilling, to have more freedom in my life, to attract love into my life, you know, whatever it is you want, something like that. And a lot of times what ayahuasca will do is it'll take you through every experience you need to kind of go through, whether it's a learning lesson, where it's something you have to heal, some type of just, you know, there's like different things you have to kind of go through in order to be of like the mindset to be able to have this thing. But what he went on to say is some of these things you pass through seem like have no relevance whatsoever at all to like where you want to be. Like, how on earth could this challenge have any connection whatsoever to me having more freedom in my life? In fact, this represents lack of freedom. And my point is, like, it's very easy to kind of resist the process. But if you can just say yes and understand that this too must have relevance, this too must be serving me, life is working for me, you will find you can move through these different like phases, if you want to say that, much more smoothly and more quickly, and get to the good life a heck of a lot faster than if you resist and question every step of the way. So just let it unfold, my friend. Let go, have patience, and trust your intuition. I know what your mind sometimes says. Your mind sometimes says, this is nuts. This YouTuber's batshit crazy. But intuitively, I believe your intuition has already been saying all this to you. It's already been I bet all I did in this video, I probably gave you nothing new, but if anything, hopefully the value of confirming what your intuition's already telling you. You just gotta trust it. You can make your life a lot easier if you start trusting your intuition. With that said, my friend, if you would like more support, one of the things I will do sometimes is a free online monthly transformation session. And this is where I gather people from my YouTube channel and take them through things that have helped me. Sometimes we'll do QHHT, sometimes we'll do breath work, different things that help with healing and transformation and kind of moving energy along. If you want to be a part of that, I'll leave a link down below. Click it, totally free. And if you enter your email, I'll send you the Zoom link and the time and date of the next one. And I hope to see you there, my friend.